Economists think the bill will increase American GDP by 0.8%. That's 0.8%. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much, but for an economy our size, that's very significant. Do you have time to read the 887 pages in the big, beautiful bill? Do you know what's in the bill? It certainly is big, but is it beautiful? Is it really beautiful? Welcome, Patriots, to this edition of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. If you're watching our podcast, please subscribe to this channel and give us your review. If you're watching on YouTube, please like us and give us your rating. Now let's look at what's in the big, beautiful bill, because it's the numbers that matter to you and your family's budget. They say making legislation is like making sausage, that you may like the product, but the production process is ugly and distasteful. Well, that was certainly true for the big, beautiful bill. According to the Congressional Budget Office analysis, this bill will affect 62% of all taxpayers. That's roughly 120 million American households. The bill started with 1,163 pages, but it was cut several times to appease fiscally conservative Republicans and cut again to win a final vote by reconciliation. That's a legislative maneuver, and avoid a filibuster. It passed in the Senate by one vote cast by Vice President Vance, and he did that to break a tie in the Senate. And it passed in the House by 4 votes. Trump signed the bill July 4th, meeting his self-imposed deadline. Now, Trump's primary objective was to preserve the tax cuts of his 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, that's the TCJA to legislators. These cuts were otherwise set to expire December 31st of this year, 2025. Now, according to the Tax Foundation, letting these provisions expire would have created what economists call a fiscal cliff, similar to what happened in 2012 when uncertainty cost the economy an estimated $200 billion in delayed investment decisions. Now, the big, beautiful bill went beyond preservation. It preserved the tax rates, sparing an estimated 62% of all taxpayers a significant tax increase. But it also temporarily increased the standard deduction until the end of 2028. And from that point on, it'll adjust for inflation. It was increased to $2,000 for married couples, $6,000 for seniors, and $1,500 for heads of households. Now, tax experts predict the bill will increase the deficit by $1.725 trillion, I said trillion with a T, over the next 10 years. No, the Congressional Budget Office predicts $2.4 trillion. The difference is in how they calculate the deficits and from what point do they measure. The Budget Office is doing it according to law. The economists are doing it according to practical evaluation of actual expenditures. Another Trump objective achieved in the big, beautiful bill is immigration security. Now, the bill includes $46.5 billion for border wall construction, $45 billion for expanded detention facilities for immigrants held in custody. Now, think Alligator Alcatraz. And $30 billion to hire and train more ICE agents, that's Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. Now, to put this in perspective, that's about $900 per American household for border security, something the American people really want. The bill also increases the United States debt ceiling by $5 trillion, avoiding a congressional confrontation later this summer when the previous debt ceiling would have been hit and breached if no action was taken. Now, this is a major political win for the GOP and for Trump. So far, Trump is on a roll. Now, one price Trump had to pay was an increase in the state and local tax deduction limit from a $10,000 limit to a $40,000 limit. Now, according to the Tax Foundation, this change will primarily benefit higher earning people. Even with income limits, the top 20% of earners will receive most of the benefits. Now, the argument for increasing the limit is that even middle-class taxpayers are being hit with higher property taxes all over the country. Now, in the final bill, it will be $40,000, and it will remain so for for 5 years when it returns to $10,000. Now, expect this to be a big, contentious issue again in 4 years, because the Democrats want to keep this limit high and the Republicans would like to lower it. During the presidential campaign, Trump promised no taxes on tips or overtime. Now, the big, beautiful bill delivers on that promise for most people. As to tips, there is a $25,000 limit on the deduction for tips for taxes paid on tips. So you get a deduction for the taxes you paid on tips until a taxpayer's income earns $150,000, $300,000 for married couples filing jointly. Now, at that income level, the tax deduction starts to decline. Now, I don't know anyone making $150,000 mostly on tips. I therefore think this deduction is good for most tip-earning taxpayers, that's estimated to be about 4 million Americans in the United States. Now, this deduction expires in 2028. Again, expect the Republicans to try to make it permanent then. Now, that would be consistent with the Republicans doing everything they can to re-identify the Republican Party as the party of the working man. Now, the bill also creates a deduction for overtime pay, like the one for tips. Overtime pay will be subject to withholding taxes, but taxpayers will be able to deduct taxes paid on overtime pay. The White House says that over time, taxpayers in the middle class will probably see a reduction in their taxes of $1,400 to $1,700. Those in the lowest income levels probably will see no benefit from the deduction because they are not making enough money to pay income taxes to begin with. So the lower income levels will not see anything from this part of the bill and frankly from most of the bill. As Trump promised, the big beautiful bill makes auto loan interest deductible for the years 25 to 2028. For single taxpayers making less than $100,000 and married couples making less than $200,000, they get this deduction. The deduction is limited to $10,000 and phases out quickly for incomes above the thresholds I just described. Now, this deduction is limited to cars whose final assembly occurs in the United States. Trump wants those manufacturing jobs to be in the United States, and he's going to get it. Social Security got no help from the big beautiful bill and still expected to have to cut benefits to seniors. Now, seniors 65 and older with incomes less than $130,000 did receive an additional $6,000 standard tax deduction to reduce their taxes. Now, this will likely shield up to 88% of Social Security recipients from taxation. But understand, 62% of Social Security recipients are already paying no income tax because their incomes were so low already, they were sheltered by other deductions. So this provision is good for seniors, but it's not the huge benefit that many expected. Now, the big beautiful bill cuts a lot of programs dear to the hearts of Democrats. Several green energy subsidies have been eliminated, such as those for electric cars, residential energy efficiency credits, and subsidies for wind and solar energy. The Democrats hate those cuts. The bill also requires work requirements for Medicaid, which were lowered dramatically by the Affordable Care Act, Obama's so-called Obamacare Act. Those work requirements have been tightened dramatically. Now, to qualify for Medicaid, a healthy person of working age must work at least 20 hours a week to qualify for benefits under Medicaid. Now, opponents to this provision say it will leave 8 million Americans at least without health care. Now, I personally don't think it is too much to ask a healthy person of working age to work 20 hours a week to receive government-subsidized health care. Poor children, the elderly, people who are already sick, they still get all their benefits without any change. So this is really just tightening it up for healthy working age Americans. Now, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation research, about 92% of working age Medicaid adults were already working to have qualifying exemptions like caregiving responsibilities or disabilities. Research from Arkansas, the only state to fully implement such requirements, shows that about 25% of people subject to the requirement lost coverage primarily due to reporting difficulties rather than refusal to work. The child tax credit was made permanent by the Big Beautiful Bill, and it was increased to $2,500 until the year 2028. Thereafter, it'll be $2,000, but it'll be adjusted for inflation year by year by year. The Big Beautiful Bill permanently increases the estate and gift tax for everyone to an inflation-adjusted $15 million in 2026. Now, this is real help to small businesses and farmers struggling with succession and transition to the next family generation of owners. It solves a major capital cost for the successors who would otherwise could not afford to pay the tax and would lose the family business or the family farm. Now, businesses benefit from a variety of provisions in the Big Beautiful Bill. A 100% bonus depreciation is restored for the short-lived capital investments made by business. And this allows a business to deduct 100% of a qualifying capital investment in the year the investment was put in service. Now, the resulting deduction can convert a taxable profit into a loss and avoid tax entirely. Now, this deduction is available from 2025 to 2029, and I guarantee you it's going to be revisited in 2028 to be made permanent. Similar deductions are available for new construction that begins before the end of 2028. So if a business builds a building or builds a factory before the end of 2028, if they start that and they complete that construction before the end of 2032, they get 100% deduction of those expenses. Now, these provisions, coupled with the new tariffs, are attracting or driving new investments in American business. I expect we will soon see a capital investment boom in America. Now, CPAs that I have interviewed love the Big Beautiful Bill because it creates a tremendous amount of new rules, especially for international business. Their clients must adjust and to take advantage of these new rules to optimize their businesses. The Big Beautiful Bill is the CPA Full Employment Act, if you ask me. Now, there's much more to cover in the Big Beautiful Bill, but I do not think you have the time or patience to listen to the mind-numbing details about the rest of the bill. Now, I'm convinced the Big Beautiful Bill is very good for most Americans, and especially for American businesses and farmers. Economists think the bill will increase American GDP by 0.8%. That's 0.8%. Now, I know that doesn't sound like much, but for an economy our size, that's very significant. Now, the Congressional Budget Office now estimates permanently extending the TCJA provisions would add about $4.6 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. To put that in household terms, that's really 1.7 trillion over 10 years. Now, how does it become 1.7? Well, the Congressional Budget Office has to measure everything from the assumption that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act tax rates would expire this year. And so they're measuring from much higher tax rates, whereas the economists that look at this objectively are measuring from the current tax rates, and they're coming up with only 1.7 trillion over 10 years. That's the calculation that I think makes sense. But 1.7 trillion over 10 years works out to be about $13,000 per American household. This is not reducing our deficit. our deficit is still going up. We need to keep that in mind, and we need to focus on that issue in the future. Now, having said all this, I still prefer our common sense taxation proposal, which would give every taxpayer a $50,000 exemption growing to $100,000 over 10 years. In return, there would be no other deductions or exemptions. Now, you and your wife could earn $100,000 in the first year of our plan and pay no tax. In 10 years, that would be $200,000. Now, above the exempt amount, everyone would pay a rate, I think 25% is the right rate, on the tax on the incremental income above the exempt amount, no matter what the source of that income. Now, this proposal would increase income tax revenues to the government because the rich will pay more on capital gains. We also propose a luxury consumption tax on luxury items only. Now, this would be a voluntary tax. You don't have to pay it if you can't afford it. Please revisit our podcast on common sense taxation to learn more about this revolutionary approach to taxation in America. Now, you are now informed enough to lead a discussion on the big, beautiful bill, and you can lead debates on its merits. I hope you will do so and report your audience's reactions and your feelings about the bill to us in our comments section. Now, if you're watching our podcast, please subscribe to this channel and give us your review. If you're watching on YouTube, please like us and give us your rating. I hope you'll join us next time when we review President Trump's evolution of thinking regarding Putin's war on Ukraine. Until then, may God bless you and yours, and God bless America.